So let me know. Tell me what it takes to be a hero, let me know. Tell me what it takes to be a hero, let me know. Tell me what it takes to be a hero, let me know. Just let me know. I think that I should ask Mr. Watson. 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 So let me know.
What's up, Facebook? I'm going to be doing a panel here in just a few minutes at the Ohio Toy and Comics Show. Mike Watson here, publisher of Short Fuse, owner of Freestyle Komics, super mad brother, the most enthusiastic person in comic books, part of the one half of the good, the bad, and the nerdy. And we're going to get it in today as I talk about how to make comics. This is going to be a good one. I'll be taking any questions. I'll also take questions online as you send them in. What's up, Chad? How you doing? I don't know who the second person is watching. It says there's two, but it won't tell me who's in there. It does that sometime, and that's fine. So, as soon as the 12:15 strikes, we'll get it rolling. We're waiting for a few people to get in here. Ohio Toy and Comic Show is a great convention. Love coming to this one. I think they do about 2 times a year. And today was the first day that we ate in the hotel at the little restaurant, and it was good. The scrambled eggs were delicious. Bacon, crispy, French toast, soft and buttery. What's up, Chad? How you doing, man? Thank you. Let's see here. We will be in here soon. Anyway, I got a time check. I'm now using my phone for Facebook Live, and it doesn't tell me what time it is. 12:13. All right, so we got a couple more minutes here before we get started and get cracking into this whole thing I call making comics. I will be right back. Tim is here. Demel is here. How are you doing? Good job. All right, we're going to get started. People walk in, they walk in. We'll just roll with it. How's everybody doing today?
It's fine. I'm good.
All right, good. Glad you all could join us today. I really appreciate it. My name is Mike Watson. I am the publisher for Short Fuse Media. I'm the owner of Freestyle Komics. I also host a couple different podcasts called Dear Creatives, and I'm one half of another show called The Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy. And I've been proclaimed as one of the most enthusiastic people in comic books. I love my job. I'm very energetic. I'm very enthusiastic about it. And I'm happy to be here today. I love coming to this show. It's a very good show. I get to make money, and that money immediately gets spent on the toys here. So, win-loss situation. All right, so this panel, I'm going to be talking about how to make comic books from my perspective and the things that I do in making comic books. And I guess we kind of got to start at the beginning of why I even wanted to make comic books. In the 6th grade, I had this buddy. His name was Tom. We were really cool, and he found out I didn't like comic books. I thought they were stupid. And he said specifically, we can't be friends if you don't like comic books. He brought me a stack of books. He said, you have one day to read all these books and find one you like. So at that time, I really didn't want to lose my friend, so I dug through these books and tried to find one that I liked. And I actually ended up finding one, X-Men number 16, the one where the Blue Squad takes on Omega Red in Russia. And I got attached to that book because of Wolverine. Let's be honest, his powers are pretty lame. His powers are the lamest one on the team. He's also the smallest one on the team, but he was the last one standing. He kept getting back up, and I saw a lot of me that I wanted to be in Wolverine and comics. That's when comic books opened up for me. So me and Tom, or Tom and I rather, started making our own comic books based off of Marvel characters or whatnot. Don't sue me. And we sold them in the 6th grade or whatnot. And that is when I knew at that moment I wanted to make comic books. I wanted to work for Marvel Comics. So speed it up. I go to college, really not knowing how to apply to work for Marvel. So I go to comic book conventions. I'm standing in line for 3 or 4 hours waiting for people to get my portfolio. And where are you? What are you talking about today, fam? I am in Dayton at the Ohio Toy Comic Con, and I'm talking about making comics. And I did this about 4, 5, 6 times. It was like over 2 or 3 years. And I would stand in those lines, take my portfolio. They would tell me, all right, you need to fix this, you need to work on that. I do it. I do it every single time. Until one last time in Chicago, I take my portfolio up there, and I'm super confident. I may be a little bit arrogant. And I was like, there's nothing they can tell me to fix. I've fixed everything. I've done all of it. Take my portfolio. The dude's flipping through it. He's just nodding his head, not saying anything. And I'm like, you can't say nothing. There's nothing to say. I paid attention for the last 3 years. You're not going to say anything but give me a job. And then he looks at me. He's like, man, why don't you come in the back with me? And I'm, got my hand on my phone in my pocket. I got my mama on speed dial, about to get ready to tell her, your boy is working for Marvel Comics, all right? Your boy, it's happening right now. We get in the back room. He lays out the portfolio. He's looking at it again, flipping through it and checking it out. And he's like, I know you've been going through the line, getting feedback from us, and it seems like you've improved a lot. You can draw. You can tell a story, get anatomy, get facial expression, things like that. But your style's real urban. And it's not a style that Marvel Comics is looking for right now. I had no idea, really what that meant. Because he didn't define it. He chose his words real carefully. And I was so shattered and broken at that moment, I really didn't push the issue. I just shook his hand and said, and walked out the door. And I was crushed for that day. And then the next day, after talking to my best friend, I got up and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to make my own comic books. I'm going to take my urban style and I'm going to make books. And that came about with Hot Shot. Hot Shot is my flagship book. It is this one right here. We are 10 issues in on Hot Shot, and Hot Shot is our flagship title. It's about a young man in college trying to prove to his girlfriend that he is not cheating on her without revealing he's a superhero, and not get kicked out of college because he's never there because he's a superhero. So he's got a lot on his plate. The book is actually about myself in my sophomore year in college. I was going through probably the worst breakup I ever had at that time, or at that time to me. And that was probably the closest I was to being depressed. So making that story about me was almost therapeutic, and telling those stories and things like that. Now, that's how I got into making comic books. And I met up with my brother Victor Dandridge in college, and he told me I couldn't write worth a dang, and I needed to learn how to write. So he made me this. He read everything I had about Hot Shot, and he made me this big textbook. He made this, typed it, and he made a 6-story arc of Hot Shot, typed all this out, but then broke it down by scene, by character development, arches, all this stuff. And I'm reading through all this. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And so when I got done reading that and I gave it back to him, I said, so that was your application to write the book, right? Because you're going to write it and I'm going to draw it. He's like, no. I was teaching you. I was trying to show you how to write. No, you was not. You put in your application, your resume, and your references to write this book, because that's what you're doing right now. And that's where the team was found. He tried to fight me on it. But I wasn't having it. After I read that, I knew he was the person to write these comic books. And once we did that, we started making the books or whatnot. Comic books is way harder than it was in the 6th grade. All me and Tom did was we wrote some words and drew some pictures on the paper, folded it up, stapled it, kept it moving. Comic books is a very engrossing process, and you have to have a true unbridled love for making books. I'm a graduate of the Columbus College of Art and Design. I went to that school mainly because they had a comic book drawing class. I saw that and I knew that was a college that I needed to go to. College class was dope. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot at CCAD. It's one of the best experiences in my life, and I learned so much there as an artist. But there were still a lot of things that I was not taught, because at that time, CCAD didn't know really a person who wanted to go into comic books needed to know. So a lot of things I had to learn on my own, specifically going to comic book conventions, and how to submit my portfolio to Marvel, DC, or whoever I want to work to. But what I should have been doing is just drawing pages from day one. I should have been drawing pages of their characters, of my characters, and just carrying a portfolio around with what's called sequentials, which is the storytelling pages or whatnot. That's what I should have been doing, going to shows, and I should have been mailing in things and submitting them and things like that. So, I think we're all up to speed now, currently where we are. With Freestyle Komics, I am the owner of Freestyle Komics. Before I got promoted to publisher of Short Fuse Media, I was the editor-in-chief, the lead artist, and the lead creative on there. So I handled all the characters and where the story was going and things like that. And comics start off with an idea. I think right now, Hotshot being the first book, we had I wouldn't say the most issues on it, but Hotshot was the book where we learned everything that we know now. So the other books have been much smoother transitions because of everything we've learned from Hotshot. And probably the smoothest transition is with our Vigilance book, which is right now our #1 selling comic book. Vigilance makes her first appearance in Hotshot. And a lot of people asked us, what are Hotshot's powers? What's the Zero event? And what's going on with Vigilance? Those are the 3 most popular questions we got when the Hotshot book came out. We didn't release all of Hotshot's powers because his powers come from a mystery. And it's an event called the Zero event where our superhuman population disappears. They literally goes down to 0. And the very next day, our main character, Mike, Hotshot, wakes up with superpowers. He has no idea where he came from, but he's a geek, so he just decides to jump out and be a superhero. And that's why people would ask those questions. So when we did our first spinoff series, we knew it had to be Vigilance. With Vigilance, I have a lot of friends that are females. So I wanted to make a character that was powerful, respectful to females, and was not over-sexualized, but did not depend on a man. And we worked really hard on building up this character, making a costume, and things like that. But when we make these books, we have to start off with a subplot. Or what the plot is going to be for Vigilance. And her story is, Vigilance is the world's strongest superhero. She works for the government with no secret identity, but she has amnesia, and she's starting to realize the government's lying to her about who she is. So at that point, she is a mentor to Hotshot. Hotshot's a rookie superhero. She's the mentor. She's the pro. Everybody looks up to Vigilance as the world's strongest superhero. So who is she after that? So we needed to figure out what we were going to do with her. So we needed to set her on a course to find out who she is. And it wasn't going to be on purpose. She wasn't going to go out and look for who she was. It was going to have to smack her in the face. So what we did with Hotshot is we started off with Hotshot, and we started off with him broken. And then we reassembled him. Vigilance was already assembled. She didn't know of anything else. She just knew she was this hero. She had a duty. That's what she was going to do. She was confident in herself. She's well respected and feared or whatnot. And she has a lot of, high-ranking honors and things like that. So she was it. She's happy where she's at, doing what she does. So when we introduced her in the first 3 issues of Vigilance, we had to shatter and break that and break her down. So we had to take all that confidence away from her and put her back at ground zero, because we're going to rebuild her into not a new person, but who she's going to become, because she's not from our planet. She does know that much. She's not from our world, but she's adopted our world because of a hero named Justice. So this stuff is going on this is like conversations between Victor and I, going back and forth, building up the foundation. Victor's the one that came up with the whole Zero event idea that pulls the whole world of Freestyle Comics together. So figuring out where she fits in that piece. So we've got timelines, we got Google Documents, we've got Hotshot's literally plotted to issue 100, which is the final issue of Hotshot. Vigilance is plotted up to issue 50. So there's a lot of Skype conversations, there's a lot of Facebook phone conversation, there's a lot of emails, just going back and forth, figuring out where this character is going to go and what we're going to do for a story arc. So I knew, after talking, we knew we were going to do 12 issues for her first story arc overall. They were going to be done in 3 parts or whatnot, but we knew we were going to reveal who she was, who she used to be, and then we established who she's going to be moving forward. And she's going to have to face something detrimental on her 12th issue that she's going to have to overcome. So we knew all that was going to have to fit in there. Google Docs are amazing. I love Google Docs because there's so many tools and things you can use on there, and I can share it with everybody on my team. So that's where we have everything at. Reference pictures, images, scripts, character designs, all on there for everybody to access. Once we figured out the scripts, once we figured out the plot, then I go talk it over with the writer. Our first writer was Micah Cox. He did the first 2 issues, and that generally is composed of, once I go over that, I say, hey, so this is where we have vigilance. This is where we want her to go, and this is where she needs to be at. How you gonna do that? Here's the parts. Here's the recipe. I want to give every writer that comes on there, I want to give them some level of freedom on the story so they can be, but at the same time, there's an overall arc where I want these characters to be where they're all going. So I make sure that's really clear to the writers that are coming on board, that I want you to have some freedom, but I need you to understand there's still a direction all these books are going, and I need to get them to that direction. All right? And so normally we'd be on the phone at initial conversation, like 3 or 4 hours, just discussing it and working on ideas. Then they would write a script. Actually, they would write an outline, 1 or 2 sentences for each page. I'd review that. I'd add my notes. Then we'd get back on the phone, normally with the editor-in-chief, who is now Danny Cooper, and go into what they have for the outline. Tell them what we like, tell them what we don't like, see what works, and see how we can tie it to the next 3 issues or whatnot. Once that's approved, that process probably takes about a week, 2 weeks for us to do that. Once that's approved, then we tell the writer to go ahead and write your first script. Go ahead and write the script. We ask them to write the script in Google Documents because Danny and I are attached to the Google Documents so we can see the notification. And the cool thing that Google Docs is, as someone's writing it, you can go ahead and ask questions as it's being written. Or if it gets done, I can highlight things and have my questions over on the side and they can answer it. And I get an email notification letting me know when they've responded or whatnot. So once that script's done, Danny and I cheer into it. And we give our feedback, what we like, what we don't like, blah, 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 blah. The writer would normally say, hey, I really like this part. I'm really attached to this. Can we keep this or whatnot? Or I'm like, oh, no, I actually really like that part. I think it works, so you're good. But I'm not really feeling this part so much because we have this thing happening over in Hotshot, and we have to be aware of that in this book. So, like, I have this whole world going on in my head right now. So that's why I'm the creative director, because I have to make sure we have 5 books, and we'll be releasing our 6th book at the end of the year, and all the books are tied together in some way, shape, or form. So I have to make sure that they're all aligned. Google Docs is free. Just checking this. I think we got, nope, no questions. All right, so once the script is done, this is a whole process of a month, going back and forth with the writer and stuff like that. And it may not take other people as long to do that because some people just work on it and whatnot. With me working with a team of people and us having 5 books, it's a very delicate process. I want to make sure the writer also feels included in what they're doing. I don't want to just, although I have creative control over it, I don't want to just edit and change stuff without going over with them or explain to them why we are doing this or whatnot. So once that's done, then we give it to the artists to do the layouts. Danny and I are very specific. We want to see thumbnails. I don't like people having to redo work or change something. So if I can see your thumbnails and I can go over the script, I can make my changes right there at that moment. Once the thumbnails are approved, then we go to layouts. And this can all be done in 2 weeks. Layouts, I want the layouts done. Excuse me. And you can do the layouts at full size. For some people, it's quicker because they're I have a couple digital artists that work with us. So they just do their layouts all the way through on there, and then they can do the pencils and inks on top of it. I may even, if I see that the layout's not working, I'll do a layout and say, hey, I need it more like this. Because sometimes I really can't describe what I need to happen in my own words, but the cool thing about that is I can draw. So I will just do the layout and say, hey, I need you to make it more like this. Now, you can use the layout just as it is, or you can do your version of this. It's very much so about making sure the story works, because I don't care how dope your art is. I don't care how good your art looks. If you can't tell a story, then none of that else matters. Excuse me. Just kidding. Man. There we go. All right, so once layouts are done, that's about a week, 2-week process of approvals going back and forth with me and Danny. Danny and I are pretty much a team. We always look at stuff together. Once that's done, then if the layouts have been approved, there should not be any changes that need to be done on the pencils, unless Danny and I miss something. And if we were super detailed on the thumbnails and layouts, we should not have missed anything. But every once in a while, something does come up and we need to edit or something like that. But the pencil process should work. And I kind of make the pencil schedule based off of the penciler, how quick they work or whatever. I may ask for, 2 to 3 pages a week. If you can go faster than that, great. But we kind of have longer timelines on our books, because for each title, we probably come up with 2, maybe 3 issues a year. So there's room to breathe, and I understand people have other jobs. Some people have day jobs. People are doing other comic books and stuff like that. So that's something that I had to learn to keep in my schedule. Once the pencils are done, and that can be a month to 2 months of penciling. Sometimes the penciler is an inker, and they'll do their own inks, or we have to send it off to an inker. Once it gets to the inker, I've never really had to make any corrections on inks. Our inkers are really good. The 2 that we have that stay with us for most of our projects, they're really good, and they've been working with us for a while. So there's rarely any time that I have to make any edits or changes on inking. The colorist, who is our lead colorist, is Veronica Smith. Veronica Smith is a beast. She colors like 3 to 4 of our books for us, and she has a different coloring style for each one. She is wicked fast when she needs to be, and she's just incredible. We would not be where we're at if it wasn't for Veronica and her colors. Freestyle would not be where it's at without Danny Cooper taking over as editor, because Danny was actually editing the books before he even got the editor-in-chief role at Freestyle Komics, because he's a letterer, so he's the last one to get it, and he would catch things that we were missing. So Veronica would color it, and she normally would do the first page and say, hey, is this what you guys want? Is this the tone that you're going for? Is this the style? Am I matching the notes for the style? And 99% of the time, yes. And she'd go through and color it. And Veronica can get like 5 or 6 pages done a week, depending on how many books she's coloring. Once colors are done, then we do the letters. Now, in the layout and thumbnail stages, the reason that we're so meticulous about that is because we are looking at it for the lettering stage as well. You got to look at where your letters are going to be placed at on these books in the layout stages to make sure people can read it functionally from left to right without, physically saying that they are doing it. We don't ever want people to pull themselves out of the books when they're reading them, and crappy letters will pull you out of a book. Letters not in a place where your subconscious understands, whoop, 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 that will pull you out of the book. I don't want people ever pulled out of a book. Oh, thank you, sir. So I didn't realize how important letters were until Danny Cooper really came aboard and did the letters. And thanks. I had did the letters for one of the books that we did, and Danny cussed me out. So I didn't do that anymore, and at that time, I didn't respect and appreciate letterers the way that I needed to, and Danny made me. It is really a true art form to have letters. When you don't notice the letters in a comic book, the letterer has gone above and beyond and done their job, because you're not supposed to notice the letters. It's not supposed to pull you out unless they want you to. The sound effects that Danny would make were super creative. He just happened to be good with Photoshop and letters. So he'd send me pages like, hey, this is the sound effect that I'm thinking about for it. And I'd be like, oh, shoot, that's great. That works. When you're working with people for so long, you kind of pick up on their strengths and weaknesses. So whenever a script's being written, although I would have a sound effect in there, and if I didn't like it, Danny got the script, he'd find something that works. He'd find something that works. Me and my inker, my God, we're like blended. Like, I know what he can do and he knows what I can do on pencil. So like, we carry each other. I mean, there was one book, think Hot Shot 9. I was trying to get that out on time for the deadline. Not my best pencils. Veronica carried me on that book with her colors. Her colors shine through. But because we were a team, we were able to get that done. So letters are done. Danny and I review. Well, Danny reviews a lot of it, and then I come in with them. We're reviewing at each one of the different stages or whatnot. And after the letters are done, we send the book to our printer. Well, no, before I was promoted to publisher, it was Sean Mack. We would send the book to him. And trust and believe, after Danny, me, and Veronica have gone through that whole book, Sean Mack will still find something wrong with it. Which is good to have so many eyes on the book. So we'd fix those things or whatnot as the final changes. Then there's a format. There is one sheet or whatever, a file that we have to have the pages at a certain size. Make sure Danny would handle that as the letterer and post-production. He'd get all the pages trimmed up to the right size. Then we submit it to the printer. Printer makes sure that all the pages are good. They give us a test print, make sure the book looks good. Once that test print is good, then we check it off, and then we start running our copies. Copies get distributed to us, and then we bring them out to the shows and we sell them. Time check? What time is it?
It is 12:36.
All right, so we go. So that is pretty much the entire process. It's a very, we're very, very involved in it. We love making comic books, and I didn't think the back office stuff would be as fun as actually drawing it. I do enjoy drawing it, but I tend to enjoy the back office stuff more. We brought on Stephanie Menard to write the 3rd issue. I was very, very specific, issue number 4, sorry, not the 3rd. Issue number 4 of Vigilance. There was an idea that once Vigilance decides that she's not going to live on the military base anymore, she demands her own apartment, her own place to live, so she can find herself and figure out what she wants to do. She's going to go into the city. She's going to have a day in the city. No costume, just regular clothes, and she's going to figure out what this world is outside of punching something in the face. I wanted it not to be a typical or stereotypical female situation where like she goes and gets Starbucks coffee, gets her nails done, shops at the mall for dresses and shoes. Vigilance wouldn't do that because she doesn't know anything about that. That's not anything that's been associated with her life as a superhero. So the question that I'm asking the writer, Stephanie, is what does Vigilance do with no costume in Cleveland, Ohio? Her first day out, what does she do? What is she going to do? Now, Vigilance is realizing, per the character development that we're doing for her, that she has something inside her. She has darkness inside of her. And we hint to that at issue 5 of Hot Shot, issue 3 of Vigilance, that she has a darkness inside of her. So the opening page, which I absolutely love, and this is why I love working with people. Some people can work by themselves, and that's perfectly fine. They come up with all this amazing stuff. I'm not one of those guys. That's one of my weaknesses. I live and breathe for working with the team and bouncing off ideas. So Danny, Stephanie, and I are on the phone talking it up. And Danny puts out there, let's open up the issue with Vigilance at an art store. She is looking at paintings, but she is drawn to a big white canvas with one black dot in the middle. She's staring at it. She doesn't know why she's connected to it, but she feels a connection to it. So the very first thing that she has ever bought for herself is that painting, and she puts it in her apartment. Vigilance has never spent any money. She has never bought anything. She's just been collecting checks because she's lived on the base. So that was the first thing that we wanted to have her do, and then now we're trying to figure out the rest of the day. I was very specific in wanting a female to write this book because I don't know nearly as much as I claim or think I know about females, okay? I'm a man. I've been living as a man for 37 years. There are little nuances that a woman is going to know more than me. Right. For example, on Emerald Quest number 2, we had a female draw that issue. And when she saw the character designs, she was like, Mike, do you mind if I touch up the hair? I was like, why? There's nothing wrong with the hair. The hair all looks good. She's like, I feel you. But some of these hairs you have designed, it just doesn't work. Like, it just wouldn't work. So just, I'm going to send you some sketches. Let me know what you think. She killed it. Her sketches were ridiculous. And it was just simple little changes that she made with the hair. Like, the hair still looked like the designs, but she made simple little modifications. And obviously, that's not something I saw because I was one of the character designers. That's not something I thought about because I'm looking at it with my man's eye. Vigilance, I wanted that female perspective because I know there's little things that goes on in a female's life day to day that I want incorporated into Vigilance because I want her to be a person first and develop who she's going to be. So Stephanie put together, she wrote like the first 3 pages. She was like, here, we broke down where Vigilance is going, what she's going to do, where she's going to be, the big battles and fights, where Vigilance is from, what she has inside of her. And this issue, for the most part, except for a little bit of action towards the end, is a quiet issue. She wrote the first 3 issues, or first 3 pages, sent it to me. I didn't change a damn thing. It was perfect. So having that conversation with Stephanie about who Vigilance is, where we want to take her, where she's going to be, including Danny in on that conversation with him as editor-in-chief, and just bouncing these ideas off of her, explaining how important she is to the series and what we want to do, but most importantly, that we want her to not be a stereotype. Not a stereotypical woman of color. We want her to be a woman and stand out and develop who she's going to be. And so having those conversations, that's my absolute favorite part. Absolute favorite part about making comic books. My second favorite part is people getting the books and actually enjoying them. Not just saying, oh, I liked it, or not want to hurt my feelings. When I can tell someone genuinely enjoys books. Which brings me to this guy right here, sitting right here. I met him a couple years ago, and you knew Victor first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Victor wrote the first 6 issues. I was at a show, me and Victor. Victor introduced me to him. He's like, yeah, so this is my brother, Mike. He draws the book. He came up with Hot Shot, and I write it. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, you've been telling me about this book, Victor. I've been wanting to jump on it. So how many issues is it? I was like, oh, yeah, we got 9 issues of it. He's like, all right, let's go. Let's get them off. Bought all the books. I was like, dude. A week or so later comes by. I go into my Facebook time stream. I see this dude put a post up about how he read all the books. He got up with the intentions just to pass some time and read the first issue. And after he read the first issue, he couldn't stop. He read the next issue, couldn't stop. And he read all the books and how much of a fan he became. I'm not paying this guy. I just literally met this person a week ago. And he read all the books and he enjoyed them. He loved them so much that he read all 9 of the books in one sitting. And then posted it on Facebook about how much he enjoyed it. That is something that I enjoy, because that is the feeling I got when I read that book that Tom gave me at X-Men. When I flipped that book open and I fell in love with X-Men and Wolverine. That's how I felt. I wanted to be able to give that to somebody else. I wanted to be able to create something that would have that same exposure and feel. And we've gotten that on several occasions. Not every single time. All the books I make aren't for everybody. And that's fine. I feel I have a book for everybody, but sometimes that doesn't work out like that. There was one kid who was at one of my shows. My nephew brought him over and was like, yeah, man, this is my uncle. This is the book that he makes. So that kid bought the first issue. He went over to the corner and started reading it. Went up to his mom, asked for another $5. Came back and bought the second issue. Went over to that side of the room and read it. Brought my nephew back with him. Borrowed $5 from him. Bought the next issue. This kid found $5 5 times to come back and buy the book. He came up to me on issue 6 and was reading it right then and there. And he was like, I don't have any more money. I was like, yeah, man, you can read it. But then I stopped and said, go ahead, you can have it. This kid hustled up $25 to get all the books. It's not going to hurt me to get this kid one book. But watching him read that book was like watching a kid watch the Spider-Verse. Enter the Spider-Verse. Like, those are feelings. Those are genuine things. And that's like, I love that stuff. That stuff feels great. That stuff is good. That's fun. That's why I do it. So that's pretty much the process of making comics, man. Right there in the T, or how it works for us at Freestyle Komics. I got signed to a publisher 3 years ago, and for the first couple months it was great, and then after that it wasn't. They didn't deliver on half the things they said they would. We separated on bad terms, and I got approached by another publisher, which is Short Fuse, and I wasn't really trying to hear it. I wasn't really trying to have it. I wanted to be back in the top, calling my own shots again. But this publisher, Sean Mack, worked with me for a long time, talked to me, answered all my questions, even made special modifications to the contract for me for things that I wasn't I didn't care for or thought was a little iffy or whatnot. And like this whole publisher courtship went on for months before I finally said, you know what, you're a good dude. I like what you're about. You're really willing to work with me. And the thing that impressed me the most is that he had experience making comic books, not drawing comic books, not writing comic books or anything, but actually production of comic books, selling comic books, putting books in stores, successful Kickstarters, having a brand out there that people know about and know of for producing good content. And that's what I needed to be around. That's what I needed to learn from. I needed to gain that knowledge. So I got with Short Fuse, signed with them, brought my books over. My very first Kickstarter was set at $3,000. We made $4,222 on my first Kickstarter. And I got introduced to a whole new audience. Second Kickstarter was set at $2,500. We did $7,000 on my second Kickstarter. So I'm now being introduced to a whole nother business side of comic books, a whole nother audience. So I have a pretty decent following in the convention circuit because I go to a lot of cons and sell books. My Facebook following may look great, but it's not. It's not anywhere where I need it to be to, keep this going, but it's growing and I'm trying to constantly improve it. But Sean introduced me to a whole new market by bringing me over to Kickstarter, and that's a whole new audience. Those are people I've never even touched. Once I started bringing these books over to Kickstarter and I'm going to shows, now I'm meeting people. Now I'm meeting people from those Kickstarters who are bringing their books to get signed by me, to ask me questions and stuff like that. That's never happened before because that's not a market I've ever been in. Me and Sean have had disagreements on things, not ugly disagreements, but things where we both have to tell our side of it and tell where we're coming from to figure out how to do things. Like Sean is a big advocate for you don't need to hurry up and make a book and have a book come out. Because honestly, while we have some success, where's your audience? Who is really biting at the teeth for your book to come out? And that's something that I struggle with because me as a comic book guy who makes content, I want to put a book out every other month. I want to get Freestyle Komics to the point to where we're putting out a book every month. But that's what made me look at my audience. The very first question Sean asked me was, if we do a Kickstarter, how much money is going to come from your fan base? I was like, man, easy, like 25, 3,000. And he was like, all right, so let's do the Kickstarter at 4. As we got closer to the Kickstarter, I started having doubts. Started looking at my online interaction. I'm like, I want to get 10 likes on this post. Where's all these people that said they like my book or they want to buy it? And I had to really look at myself, look at my social media presence, and say, nah, we need to bring that dollar amount down, dog. Well, I think my fan base from social media and my contents can bring in 1,000. Like I really had to evaluate that and look at, and like that's not something I want to admit. That's not a conversation I want to have because on the outside looking in, my Facebook presence is live. My convention presence is live. But your presence can be live. People can be all about you and having a good time and stuff like that. But how many of those people are actually putting dollars down to buy your book? How many of those people are actually putting those dollars down and advocating for your book? Those are things I didn't know. I didn't know or even look at those things until I got with Short Fuse Media. So I'm thinking, I know all about making comic books. Look at the success that I've already had. I've fallen and I've picked myself back up. I get with a whole nother publisher and they're opening the book on different things that I've never thought about. So I've had to change my social media presence. And this guy will tell you that was the year of the live. Once I got with Short Fuse Media, I always was on Facebook Live. And I was interacting. For my Kickstarters, I was doing push-ups. If we hit to $1,000 by the end of the night, I'll do 50 push-ups, and I do it on Kickstarter Live. And people would watch it and they laugh at me because I was falling on my face because I'm out of shape, and that was a comedy in it or whatnot. I'm on Facebook Live right now, right now on his and on mine. But trying to build that audience because one of the most important things, and it's something that Vic, Danny, and I already knew, but we didn't realize that we knew it. We hadn't defined it, but it was something we were already doing. And Sean which would probably be the third most important thing that, well, maybe the first, but there was three things when I first came to Short Fuse that Sean really broke down for me. Sean said, people will buy books from you before they buy a book because it's good. If people like you, they will buy your products simply to support you. Not every single person, but a lot of people, if you make them laugh, if they like you, if they enjoy conversation with you, they'll turn around and say, what you got? I'm going to buy this. I'm going to support you. Now, the thing is that when those people do that, is that you have a good product. So when they open it up, it's like, yo, that dude was funny. He was a cool guy. Oh, this is a really good book. This is a really good book. Well, let me go back and get some more content, because not only do I like him, but he makes good stuff. These are things I was not thinking about or looking at all when I was just, making comic books. But that one aspect, Victor and I had been doing for a while, because we got dubbed the masters of self-promotion, because we were loud, we were energetic, we were enthusiastic, we were coming into shows being loud, and nobody was doing that. We were doing giveaways, we were doing contests, we were getting into fights with Eric Larson on social media. It just wasn't being done, and that's when people noticed us. But then they said, wait, you guys are putting out a full color 22-page comic book every other month on time? Yeah. And it's an indie book, but it's a superhero book? Yeah. Nobody was doing that. So it's just, going in there, changing the game plan to what you guys want it to be or whatnot. We like superhero books, but we're indies. And we wanted to put out a full color superhero comic book. We wanted to put that book out, and we wanted to make the production level good, because I just didn't want the book. Like, your artwork can look like whatever you want to look at. But if the book's not produced well, if the book isn't trimmed well, good printer, pages lined up, look professional, it's trash. Nobody's going to want to buy that because you don't have a professional look to it. I don't care how your art looks. Your art can look like a grade schooler, or your art can be professional, or top-notch Marvel, DC, all that. But if the book is not done professionally, you're not going to get anybody. So these different aspects or whatnot. So much goes into creating and selling. Just checking. Oh, there's Danny Cooper. He's in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. 12:52. Okay. Thank you very much. So that's it. So if any of you have any questions, be happy to answer any of them. Yes.
Where are your comics distributed at? I mean, you guys publish, but where can you get your comics at?
Well, in Columbus, there's 4 comic shops that carry my books. We also sell them on our website, shortfusemediagroup.com, and the Facebook page for Short Fuse and Freestyle Komics. Then you can get them through any of our Kickstarters that we do. Specifically, we use our Kickstarters for releases for our books. We kind of treat them like a premiere party for each book that comes out, so they get their own shine for 30 to 45 days, and then we post them up on the store. And then I carry them around in the trunk of my car everywhere I go. So if you see me, I got books.
You said you have 3 or 4 people that everything goes through before anything really gets done, but how often do you come up with like the most brilliant idea ever, and then someone just goes, that was X-Men 14?
Oh, not necessarily that, but Danny Cooper has crushed my dreams a few times. And he knows that he'll do it, because like I'll go off, I'll be like, oh man, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and have this happen, and then Danny be like, but if we did this won't make sense with that issue, and remember we had this happen, and the phone will go silent, and I'd be like, I need to call you back, man, and I'll get off the phone, because I'm pissed. I am pissed. I had all that energy, I worked on that idea, and I was just waiting, and all I wanted to hear was, damn, that's dope. That's all I wanted to hear. But that's why you have to have people in your team that work with you, that you feel are on par with you, that will call you on your shit, that will tell you and let you know. And then, after a day, I'll call him back. And he'll be like, all right, I was waiting for the call. I know I made you mad. And I'll be like, you did, but you're right. So we can't do that. So how are we going to fix it? And then we'll sit on the phone and talk about how we're going to fix it. And sometimes when situations like that happen, if it is a reference to a book, if it's done tastefully, you can do it as an homage. Because that Hot Shot #1 cover, that's a complete homage cover to Miss Marvel. I absolutely love that cover. I think it was great. It's one of the smartest covers done for introducing a new character, and I loved how it was done. So I wanted to do one like that to pay homage to it.
How close could you get to like homage stealing?
That is a tricky little line, and we and we've had a couple situations with that. It's a case by case scenario. It's a case by case scenario. Now I can tell you that when I do a layout off the top of my head. But then after I do that layout, I will go look up several of my favorite artists. I'll grab some of my favorite comic books, and I will look and see how they do it compared to what I did, and I would make some tweaks and changes to it if I think it needs it to punch it up. Now that's reference. That's using reference. Let me see here. Hold on. Well, you can almost say this one's an homage cover to the first appearance of Superman when he's lifting the car over himself. That's genuinely the same pose, but we switched the camera. Obviously, it's Vigilance doing it. We changed the stakes of it with fire and stuff underneath her or whatnot. Some artists don't care about lifting. And maybe there's not a clear enough definition for it for everyone out there, but I know I've used pictures before, but I've always tweaked those pictures so it doesn't look like I'm directly lifting off of that picture or whatnot. Sometimes I may draw that same pose of a character that I like just to get it out of my system, just to loosen me up and get in that mode or whatnot. But I may be doing it as a study as well to see how that character's put in the arm with the muscle and the flesh and things like that and moving it around. So as far as that, it's a case-by-case scenario, and a lot of times it boils down to if the artist acknowledges it off rip. So if you do a post and you post it and you say, hey, this is my new page, I was super, super inspired by yada, yada, yada artists and the way that they did this, I had to take it and make my version of it. That's how you get off of just lifting. Now, if you put it out there and blind share it like, oh, I just drew this, or people are posting like, oh my God, them hands are amazing. Oh, you just drew the hell out of that. That looks so incredible. And you like, yup. And that's all you say. Yeah, you lift it and you just don't give a dang. Any other questions?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting what you said at the beginning of the journey. You would go to comic conventions and show your portfolio, which I've seen people do before. Why can't you just go to New York, to Marvel Studios or LA and talk to them directly?
Oh, because they're not going to let you in. I would love to. Yeah, I told the story. Yeah, you're not going to be able to get into their office because if it was like that, everybody would. So with showing your portfolio and things like that, I love going to shows because normally there is a comic book artist that I respect or somebody I know that's in the industry that's really good or whatnot, and I don't bother them. I wait till the end of the show. When I see them right before they're about to pack up, I wait till after their lines are done or whatnot, and I say, hey, can you look at my portfolio? I don't want you to tell me what I'm doing good. I want you to tell me what I'm doing bad. Trust me, you're not going to hurt my feelings. My teacher told me my artwork looked like a crapola sandwich, so I'm fine. I just want to know what I can improve on or whatnot. So that's the thing, like going in there. One of the editors from DC looked at my stuff and he really liked it, but he looked at my buildings and was like, there's something about this building, man. This building, it doesn't look like I can go take a shit in it. I said, excuse me, what? This building has to look like I can walk into it and take a shit, and it doesn't. I'll work on my buildings then, sir. I mean, there was nothing else to say about that. He's an editor at DC Comics, and he wants the building to look like he can take a dump. I need to draw that building and make it look better. It didn't hurt my feelings. It's just something that I needed to work on or whatnot. God, I had a comic artist look at my stuff, and he said, dude, you can really draw. Your stuff is really good. You should be drawing comics for the big houses. But I can tell you what's holding you back. And I'm like, what? Tell me. Your facial expressions. They're good, but they're off. There's something that you need to do to take your facial expressions to another level. Because honestly, you understand how to draw a face, you got the emotions up there, but they're just off a bit. You need to take them up so they look like, and then show me his work, so they can look not like how I'm drawing them, but to this medium of what I'm displaying. So you got to find your version of the complicated expression, and finesse it with a lot of detail versus not a lot of detail. What's your middle ground? You got to figure out what that is. And he said that's the biggest thing holding me back. And I'm like, dang. And then when I'm looking at my faces, I can see it. Like, I see what he's saying, and then I'm looking at his artwork as well. So, yeah. Anyone else?
What were some of the biggest hurdles you had to make with your first book, getting from point A to point B, getting it out there?
That's a great question. So, the first issue of Hot Shot, and John, if you're still listening, I'll answer your question next. The first issue of Hot Shot took me months and months to draw, because I would draw the first page, the second page, the third page, and I get to the third page and I'd be like, oh my God, this looks so much better than the first page. So let me redraw the first page and the second page. Then kept the third page. Then I go to 5. Then I go to 6, 7. I go to 8. I'm like, oh my God, this looks better than page 3. Let me fix page 3. Okay, let me go back and fix this page. Let me redraw this page. I kept redrawing the pages until Victor came knocking at my door, and I answered it, and he pushed past me and said, what you doing? I said, number one, I guess letting you in my house. Rude. I was like, I'm working on comics. I'm working on Hot Shot #1. He's like, is you? Because that book should have been out. I was like, quit playing. I'm drawing it. I'll be showing you the pages. So he went in my room. He saw the pages all everywhere, and he's like, what is all this? Like, it's Hot Shot #1. I know where everything is. I know what all this is on the floor. Don't worry. I have an organization. So no, you don't. What are you doing? Well, this page didn't look as good as this one, so I redrew it. Then I got up to this one. I was like, that page didn't look good, and I redrew that. He's like, stop it now. Okay. You need to just make the book. Flat out. You are never going to make a perfect comic book. You just need to draw the pages, get them done by the deadline, find a middle ground that's acceptable for you, and guess what? You will get better as the book comes out. The more books you do, you will find new ways to draw. You'll find new ways to solve the problems that are holding you back. The more you draw, the better you're going to get better you're going to get at drawing the book. But you got to come out with the book. You're not going to, you got to know what it means to finish a book. And you're never going to know that, but you can sit here and redraw this thing for years and never come out with it. Because I'm afraid that somebody's going to say it looks crappy or that doesn't look good. Because I think every single panel needs to be perfect. But I'm not going to get that experience unless I draw comic books and I make a goal and I finish it. And so we just put out the book.
Would you say you apply that concept to every aspect of the book itself?
Yes. You got to find a middle ground. Of course, we want our books to look the best that they can. Number one, the biggest thing that we're looking for is storytelling. Storytelling has to be above everything else. And then the look of the book. We want it to be good. We want the book to look good. But we got to make sure we have timelines that we want the books to be out or whatnot. So you got to understand that I have to let that go. All right, that's done. Let's move on to the next one. John is asking, is comic creation your primary job, or so do you also have a 9-to-5? I have a part-time job that I do during the daytime where I teach kids art classes. I do art classes at night with Picktown Artworks. I also do freelance work for Marvel and Upper Deck through their sketch card division. I do freelance work. I actually just finished a children's book, drawing, inking, and coloring a children's book. I do commissions at conventions. I do comic book work for other people, and I sell comic books. So that's how I make all of my money. Hope that answered your question, John. Yeah. All right.
5 hours.
All right, cool. Is there, I got time for one more question. If not, we're good. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you coming out and spending this time with me. I am in the pro room over there. So if you guys want to stop over there, I have a free item for spending this time that you can show everybody else and be like, nah. Y'all should have came to the panel. My man was giving out free stuff. All right, I'm out. Oh yeah. I can't believe we talked this whole time and I didn't bring that up. We turned him into comic characters. I forgot how we even did that. Like, what are you talking? Like, you made a post or something?
We had a conversation about it, just in general, and then one day you just showed me the artwork.
Yeah.
We're like, I made you guys.
Yeah, I turned him and his roommate into these two characters, and they are demon hunters, and they have their own podcast called The Basement of Doom, and they capture demons and put them in their basement of doom. They literally have a basement of doom that they put in. So they're part of this secret organization that hunts demons around the world. And these two guys are super lovable, and they're guys that you want to hang out with and have fun with, but they may not be the brightest sometimes when it comes to adventuring because they talk about their adventures, and sometimes they cause their own issues. And they're going to cause one hell of an issue by the time we hit issue 3 of their book or whatnot.
It's called Basement Fodder Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Check out our website at thebasementofdoom.wordpress.com.
Thank you for joining us and tuning in. This will be up on my YouTube page for Dear Creative, and I will catch y'all later.